Today I want to introduce to you the Commander 2 rate controller from Surefire Ag. The Commander 2 is a self-contained rate controller capable of controlling both servo and PWM platforms. The Commander 2 regulates rates of application precisely by adjusting the speed of the pump based on feedback from the flow meter and the tractor speed. Commander 2 is very universal and can be used in several different platforms, including but not limited to the Tower 110 electric pump system, PR series hydraulic diaphragm pump systems, and Spartan injection pumps along with NH3 platforms. Today I want to walk through how to set up the controller once you receive your Commander 2. After hooking up the 12 volt power, first thing we will do is power on the console with the toggle switch. A few numbers will flash across the screen, letting us know that it is cycling through the startup, and then it will be ready for standard calibration mode. This mode is where you would enter the custom numbers for your specific implement. To enter calibration mode, hold down the Cal button or the CAL button for 2 to 3 seconds until the red light goes solid, indicating that we are now in calibration mode. Now we're able to go around the horn and calibrate our system. We'll start at rate. This naturally would be where you would want to enter the target rate in gallons per acre. For this specific setup, we're going to do 5 gallons an acre. You can go down in rate or up in rate. And the same is true when you're actually driving through the field planting. You would be able to change that rate right there at 1 gallon at a time or a half gallon at a time, depending on how you want to do that. Next, we go to adjust rate. And right now it is set at 1 gallon at a time. And the adjust rate is where we would set the amount of rate change by pressing that plus or negative button. And again, very simple there. Most time, factory setting is at 1 gallon increments there. Next, nothing in the volume per minute or PF ratio. Then we would go to continue calibration and the startup here to the flow cal. Again, very simple here. This is where we would enter the calibration number for your flow meter. There are several different flow meters across the board, but again, in this scenario, we're using our 0.3 to 5 gallon per minute electromagnetic flow meter from Surefire Ag, which requires a 6,000 pulses per gallon number. So then we'll flip it over to width cal, and this is where you would enter the width of the implement in inches. This is really important because if it's too much, we're going to be pumping off, and if it's too short, we're not going to be pumping enough either. So this is a very important place to make sure that we're entering the width of the implement in inches. So it's flashing no boom right now. We would go to the 3 switches on top of the Commander, and each one is a section, and we're only able to do up to 3 sections with our Commander 2. So I'll flip on boom 1. We've already got 120 in the controller, and this is an 8-row implement that we're showing here on the screen today. So 120 inches for section 1, 120 inches for section 2, and we're just doing half width 2 sections on this particular setup. So once you've put in the width, we'll move through to the speed calibration number. And again, this is a very important number. This is where we would enter the calibration number for the Astro 2 speed sensor, a grain drill shaft speed sensor, or any other type of speed sensor that would be required to monitor ground speed. So without ground speed, our system's not going to be able to talk to the flow meter and then give those piece of information back to our Commander 2. So in this box, 0.189 is going to be the calibration number for our Astro 2 speed sensor. We'll continue around the horn here in calibration mode, standard calibration mode on the Commander 2. Next is control speed. And this would be the number, essentially would tune the system in a little bit tighter if we were going too fast or going too slow, if we were over adjusting. It would kind of dial that in tighter. So again, the factory setting there is going to be -2 for both our electric pump systems and our hydraulic pump right systems. But be sure to reflect back to your specific manual for other platform values. And lastly, here in standard calibration mode, we go to test speed. This mode is only used to verify operation after we have calibrated the entire system. So we're at that point, and we would leave that at 0 for now, and then we would come back in a different test mode and be able to test the system here on speed. But right now for standard calibration, nothing would go in this box. So to finish with the calibration, we simply need to save those numbers. We would hold down the cal button just like we did to get into it. Hold it down, light goes away, and those cal values have now been saved in the system. And we are ready now to operate the system as we have calibrated it in standard calibration mode. Today we are talking the Commander 2 rate controller from Surefire Ag. In order to calibrate the Commander 2, there are several different modes in which we can go into to calibrate the system. The main mode is standard calibration mode, and we've got another video for that, so we would invite you to check that out for standard calibration mode. Today I want to talk to you about the special calibration mode. This is a factory setting. Most of the settings in here come a factory set and will likely never need adjusted, and we really would ask that the folks stay out of the special cal mode unless absolutely necessary. But we would invite you to consult with your dealer or a Surefire representative before adjusting the special cal numbers. Again, most time those are factory set and will likely never ever need changed, but once in a while there are certain scenarios where we can adjust those numbers to dial a system in. But if we have to do that, a lot of times there could be something else going on in the system. So just wanted to show everyone how to at least get into special cal mode. But again, we don't want to be going in there and changing a lot of these factory set numbers. So getting into special cal mode is kind of a challenge in its own, which kind of keeps people away from it in the first place. So you have to hit the auto man button, cal button at the same time while flipping on the power. And spec, S-P-E-C, will come across the screen indicating that we're in special calibration mode, and it will show anywhere you click basically that we're in special cal 1. That's page 1 of the 3 pages in special cal. So the way to navigate through there is to click the cal button. It will take you to page 2, and then it will take you to special calibration page 3. So we'll go back to 1, assuming you go around and change any settings or have to double check any settings just to make sure that nothing got changed. Then once you're done, again, you would just simply press the cal button, save those settings, and it will take you back out to general, manual, or auto mode. Today we're talking the Commander 2 rate controller from Surefire Ag. The Commander 2 is a self-contained rate controller capable of controlling both servo and PWM platforms. Once you have calibrated your system, calibrated the Commander 2, it is time to run the system. And this first test would be the manual test. In this test mode, we will run the pump. We can speed it up, slow it down, and during these tests, we really like to observe flow in volume per minute, in gallons per minute. We can check the pressure. This is really just a great way to go in and make sure that the system is working, winterize your system at the end of the year. Any of those kinds of things that you want to do, or just generally make sure that you have power and that the system is pumping. This is the way that we want to do that. So here in the bottom left is the auto man button. If you click on it, we'll go into auto mode or manual mode. So again, for this manual test, we want to be in manual mode. We're going to put the dial to volume per minute, and that's where we're at right now. We'll put the system into run, which we are in run right now. And to know if you're in run or not, to know if your lift switch or mercury switch is working properly. If you are in hold, it's going to show hold on the screen. And once you are in run and ready to go, hold will disappear from the screen. So we are in run, we are ready to go. That means the mercury switch or the lift switch is engaged. And if it's a hydraulic pump, naturally you would want to turn on your hydraulic flow at this time. So right now, again, to check our section control, our section valves, again, we can only do 3 of them, 3 manual valves on this Commander 2. We can turn boom 1 on and turn boom 2 on, and that will indicate that our sections are ready to go. So at this point, we will hold down the plus button here in manual mode, and this will allow us to open up the valves, open up the pumps, and the pump should start pumping. Now, you only want to hold this down for a few seconds in manual mode, and that will allow the pumps to ramp up in speed really quickly. And then as soon as you let go, it will start to trickle back down to 0. So right now, we're seeing a few things here on the screen that are good news. We're showing roughly 1.2 gallons per minute. We are able to swing around and look at the pressure. Run a little high pressure right there for an electric pump, but showing 43 PSI. So again, a few things that it will allow us to look at. And again, you can hear the pumps pumping, section control is working, and if we were out in the field, we should be pumping product out onto the ground. So again, this is a good time to go around. We should be testing with water at this point. This is a good way to get into the system right at the beginning of the season. And this is also a really good way to winterize your system at the end of the year, just to run product through it. When you want to complete your manual test, just like we started it with the plus button, we'll hit the minus button and hold it for a few seconds, and you will see it drop back down to 0. A lot of times when you do let go of it in the manual mode, it will slowly work its way back down to 0 because nothing is automating this test for us. So we're manually running it, and it would go back down to 0 eventually. But yeah, you do want to be careful in manual mode not to ramp that pump up too high. We can certainly get high pressure situations, blow tops off of flow indicators, or have any other leaking issues. But this would be where we want to do that test in the first place at the beginning of the season to make sure we don't have any kinds of leaks or loose fittings or anything like that. So once we're done there, turn the boom switches off, and that completes our manual test of the Commander 2 rate controller. Today we're talking the Commander 2 rate control system from Surefire Ag Systems. Again, once your system has been fully calibrated and plugged in, ready to go, after you run your manual tests, we are now ready for automation and to check everything else within the system to make sure to see if we're ready to go and eventually be ready to go to the field. So right now we want to talk about calibration mode and auto mode. So this would be our auto test. This would be the final test to kind of evaluate everything right before we would go to the field. So in the auto test mode, we will simulate driving through the field in the tractor with the system fully automated like it would be essentially during planting time driving through the field. And hopefully we'll be locking on the rate, able to see our pressure and see how the system is performing. So to get into auto mode, the auto test, we want to go into calibration mode once again by holding down the cal button. Hold it down for a couple of seconds and then your red light will come on. We want to make sure that we're also in auto mode. So we'll jump back out really quick. I probably should have shown you that. We'll hold down the auto man button and we'll want to make sure we are in auto mode. So we're in auto mode. We'll hold the cal button back down. We'll click the dial over to speed, lower right corner. And here we can hold the plus button down to put in our desired speed that we would be planting at in the field. So for this simulation, we'll put in 4 miles an hour. Takes just a couple of seconds, and that will be replicating 4 miles an hour driving through the field. Then we are going to want to turn the dial over to rate. And again, earlier we put in 5 gallons an acre, so we know that's going to be our target rate. When we are ready to go, we've got the system in run already, and the only thing now is we have to open up the section valves to open up the flow and to let the pumps know that they can go. So we're over at speed. We're showing that we're driving 4 miles an hour. The system is applying 5 gallons an acre as we asked it to. And here we're able to flip over to pressure and see the overall system pressure and feeling pretty good about the fact that we're at 24 PSI. And with our Tower electric pump systems, we want to be running anywhere between 15 and 30 PSI comfortably. We can sure run a little bit higher than that into the 30s, but we like to stay under that 40 PSI range for sure with our electric pump system. So we're in good shape there. Again, we can also flip over to volume per minute and check that. So we're at 0.8 roughly, and that's going to move around. Another thing I do like to point out that when we're in test mode, sitting still, naturally, you're not going to see the pressure jump around a lot. But once we are actually traveling through the field, it's going to be just a natural thing to see the pressure jumping around. However, when we're locked over on rate, and this is where we want to keep it as we're driving through the field to know what our gallons per acre is. And right now we're locked on at 5 gallons an acre, and we don't want to see that bouncing around too much. But again, with liquid, naturally, you're gonna see some things bouncing around. So everything is looking good. This is our auto mode. Now going to the field, you would be ready to go in this case. So we will put this back down to 0. And after we get out of this with a flip of a switch, you are ready to plant in auto mode, driving through the field. So we're in hold, section's off. We'll get out of cal mode. And now we are back into standard auto mode, in hold. And now once you are ready to plant, you would simply flip the switch over to run, turn your booms on and start driving, and the system will put out the 5 gallons an acre. That is the auto mode. You're now ready to plant. Again, with any questions, we ask that you check out your specific manual for any of the platforms that you're running, or please consult your dealer or Surefire representative before adjusting any of those special cal numbers within the system.